Oh, I have a question for David Kaye.
Oh,
Hey.
Yes.
right off the bat.
Yes.
So you've voiced a lot of characters from Raccoon to Beast Wars Megatron to Animated Optimus to Sesshomaru. Do you have like a favorite kind of character to play out of all of the different kinds you've played, or do you like them all equally?
It's a difficult question, and it's a boring answer because it's like, do you have a favorite child?
Yes.
It's really, because the fact that they actually hire me for something is still, after all these years, remarkable to me. That I actually, get a call. Hey, they want me. Are you sure? Because Corlett's pretty good, and so I still have that going on. But I think recently I did. I really enjoyed the He-Man playing Battle Cat because I grew up with I watched that as a kid, and I always kind of a fan. And he was a cross between there's two actors, one on Game of Thrones and what's his name?
I don't know who you are, I don't know what you want, but I will find you and I will kill you. What's his name?
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson from
Liams.
Taken.
Yeah.
So I have a particular set of skills. And so I sort of created this, and it's a fatherly, and as a father, and as an older father now, which is freaking me out, he is something close about him that I felt very comforting, like putting on a warm blanket. So I love them all, but I really enjoyed working on that because it just felt comfortable to me, and anything closer that feels comfortable makes me smile.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, as considering Vegeta as a popular character, how does it feel to play play one of a few characters that overpower him?
Well, he's not the brightest tool in the shed. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
But I do get my my butt handed to me, and that there's that huge battle scene. I don't know, Vegeta. He's more of a what would you say, conniving, thinking more.
Yeah.
I mean, Raccoon is a might rhymes with doom and all. It's just big and screamy. God, that hurt. Sorry.
It's okay.
But yeah, I mean, he's not the smartest one, I always thought, and I played him against Vegeta, and we all know what happened, right?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Ursa, thank you for answering.
I'm wondering, so 90s voice acting compared to 2020's voice acting, any remarkable differences, any things that got better, anything that got worse, anything you wish you could tell yourself from back then that you knew now?
That's a great question. We kind of we had a similar one the other day, and I think I can only speak for myself. When I first, sorry, forgive me, I'm repeating myself. When I first started, and Dragon Ball was my first foray into animation, really. I'd done a lot of commercials and jingles and things like that, but so the boy voices, that's what I got known for. I was like queen of the boy voices. But when I started, it was very cartoony. So it was like, oh, the kids were like way up here, and oh man, it was like really, really cartoony. And then as time progressed, it became a lot more real. Like they wanted the boys to sound like boys. So it's like, hey mom, yeah, I took it out already. God, my sister's driving me crazy. It just became a little more real. And as well as the females, every once in a while they let me play a female. But everyone just became a little more realistic. And then they actually were casting 10-year-old boys versus us. And we were like, like all us women that do a lot of boy voices. So really there was a period where my agent was like, sorry, you can't go out. You're not a 10-year-old boy. But as...
Really?
I know. Sometimes I act like one, but... but then it changed again because 10-year-old boys, if the series progresses, their voices change, right? So in ours is not going to. So then it kind of changed back, swung back again, the pendulum, thank goodness. And yes, that's the basic difference I noticed. I mean, there's animation differences, like the production value and everything has certainly changed. They can probably talk more about that, but that's how it changed for me.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that idea, I guess it's probably been a solid 10 years now where well, you know what? It's probably 15 years from cartoons being almost universally cartoony sounding, like big and like huge, to getting more real, as Jillian said, to another level of like almost non-performance. Like trying to think of some examples, like Adventure Time, sort of. A bunch of the modern cartoons, it's like, you know,
The regular show?
yeah, the regular show, that kind of stuff. So, and it's just an interesting commentary on how we, you know, what we want to hear. And I think it's a pendulum that kind of swings, like, and we especially notice it in casting for animation and commercials. You know, this is terrible. Hopefully there's no producers watching. But every producer thinks that they've got this brand new idea. Let's make it really hyper real. Oh, okay, yeah, that's super original. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to go, we're going to, you know, swing back to maybe a larger performance, because I'm seeing more broad stuff. It's a little bit like fashion. If you look back in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, the end of the 60s is when this started to change. But basically, you know, if someone worked in an office or they worked, you know, had a job, they had a particular look, and the ladies' skirts were a certain length. And then over time, it, you know, the 60s and early 70s, let's just stick with skirts. They got shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, and that was like, oh, everyone sort of did it. And fast forward to now, anything goes. So I think the same thing kind of works with you know, our part of the world, performance, where you know, when you hear old commercials, they sound so stiff and broad, and everything was like this. It's a commercial, of course. And then it got more real, and then it got really mumbly. Like, I mean, I'm sure you've heard these.
Yeah.
It just drives me nuts.
I think
you're
it's still
trying
there.
to sell something. You have to hear it. But anyway, but now I think it's just kind of this mixed bag in animation too. It's like, hey, we've got the Cuphead show, blah, right? Huge. And then we've got the super hyper realistic stuff, and I think we're better for it.
Yeah, it keeps as actors. You have to be, if anybody's interested, you have to be able to maneuver with the times. Because
100%.
as Ian said, there was back in the 50s was the voice of your father. You know, Pall Mall cigarettes are very. You should. You know, and it was sort of that. And every decade, a voice changes to where now you know. I can tell you're selling me something. Don't sell me anything. Yeah. Like in trailers, like it's that line that I always like, you know, sell me the movie, but don't sell me the movie.
Right.
You know, so it's a fine line, but it's also fun for us because it's like working out. It's like using all your muscles. So.
And in the animal kingdom, it's like, you know, survive or die, you know, or adapt or die.
Adapt or die. Yeah.
So we have to adapt. That's the hallmark of a good actor. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I think so.
Great, really good.
That was a
question.
good
That was a
question.
great question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't hide that beautiful face.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to me that this was such a slow burn show that from when it premiered to when it actually like did become a hit, it was, you know, about 2 years for that really to happen. And then when more was made, you know, it wasn't with you guys. And then after a gap, you guys got to come back for the Canada version of the dub. And so I'm just like, it's that type of question, but from the framework that it was like so many stop and goes, like when was it that you really felt like, you know, these were your characters, I guess, or that you felt like, you know, this was, you know, something that you felt like, I can't believe I get to be a part of, you know, Dragon Ball?
I don't know how many of you know this, but I was involved right from the very beginning of not the animation, obviously, because it's a Japanese production. But I was one of the first people that met the original producers, Funimation, when they got off the plane in Vancouver. And they said, we've got this show. Vancouver had a reputation for high quality dubbing for whatever kind of production it was. A lot of, and Japanese animation was just starting to flow through the system. So these guys get off the plane looking like a couple of IBM salesmen, not, you know, entertainment people. And they said, we got this project. We want to, reversion the scripts and cast the voices, and we hear that you guys are the ones that know how to do it. So we took it on, and for me, I mean, it was just another production. Like, you have no idea whether something's going to be a hit or not. If anyone tells you, oh, I knew the minute I did it, this is going to be, I mean, there's a few that might stand out, but I think largely it's a big, giant gamble, and you go, wow, what a happy accident, So to actually answer your question, with my history, I originated the voice of Goku. I think I probably cast myself. To answer your question, which is the purpose of why we're here, I realized it was something special when I read an interview. Actually, let me backtrack a little bit. I'm sorry for taking over this, but
It's okay, Gary Chalk. It's all right.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But it's part of my history. So I quit because it was too much yelling, and I went, I had a lot of other things to do. Early days of the internet, it's not like you could go, hey, is this thing happening? And this is on point with your question. Like, it's not like you could check. Plus, we're in Canada. So we're not getting Toonami. We've got our version of our broadcaster. And like, to try to find out what's going on, is this show going well? It's difficult. It was, especially in those years.
Yeah.
So had we, I didn't know how popular it was becoming. So it goes through 2 or 3 Goku voices after me. I mean, you can choose, make your own decisions which one was the best one. But vote for Ian, vote for Ian. Anyway, the time I knew it was like a massive hit was when I read an interview on the current voice of Goku. So it had already moved to Texas. And I'm reading it, because people ping you with stuff like, hey, there's an interview, you're mentioned. What? Okay. So I look at it, and I'm looking at it like as if it's in a magazine. It was online. Anyway. And the guy he's recounting the audition process. And he's talking about, like, I'm in Dallas, and I get this audition, and it's for Dragon Ball. And I went, what? Like, is it really that well known? Like, day. And that's when I realized how big this was. When you've got people auditioning for a role that you've already done, and there's been a couple of versions of it, and someone is absolutely thrilled for the opportunity to be cast in this series, that's when I went, oh, I guess it's kind of popular. Yeah. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. Had I had a crystal ball, I would have never said, I want to stop doing this role. Because, you guys are fantastic. The Dragon Ball fan base is, like, insane. Mm-hmm. And I mean that in a good way.
Yeah, like I think I did 6, not even that many episodes, and still people, do the Rikum, and Neri's making pictures for me to. I didn't realize back then. I had no idea.
Yeah,
it's just another job.
Yeah, but it was, and it is all about you guys. Seriously, keeping it alive, and it just keeps going.
And slow burn. That's a perfect way to characterize this show, because it did go sort of slowly, and by the time it's massive.
And it was my first gig really, playing a boy especially. So I was so caught up in, because I took over for our lovely talented actress friend Saffron Henderson. After the first couple years, because she moved out of the country. And so I had to emulate her, as well as kind of get a grasp of the character. Apparently, because I did a con with Stephanie, I think her name is, who did the voice in Texas. And she said, oh, they didn't play your voice ref at all. They wanted us to do our own thing. So she's down here, like she's doing, whereas I was like, way up here. It's like, oh, Dad. So they really changed it. But I was so caught up in just, oh my gosh, I have to do a good job, I'm gonna get fired, oh my gosh. I wasn't really even thinking of the success of it. I was just thinking, don't screw up and do a good job and sound like a boy. Because when you're really high, it's hard to still sound like a boy. and not go
It's
into the.
so hard to sound like a boy when you're high. When you're really high.
Oh, you're nasty. But I didn't really realize till like, I have to say like a decade later. And it was like, oh my gosh, people know me from Gohan, Goten, Baby Goku. They know me from that more than anything, even though I had big shows like Lloyd on Lego Ninjago. And so I was amazed, like all of us. It was like, wow, this is an incredible fan base. And Inuyasha was kind of a similar thing. I get more requests for Shippo stuff than, gosh, probably any. So, yeah, like David said, it's thanks to you guys for keeping it alive. It's amazing. And it's great to meet you, because we sit in a little booth and we don't get to meet our fans. So, this is
you,
awesome.
guys.
Thank you. Great question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is when you guys go into a new project, how does that process work in choosing that voice for that character? Is it like an array of voices that you provide, and then they're like choose that one, or how does that work?
It's a feel. I mean, for me, everyone has their own different process, but for me, I literally cold read it.
Yeah.
I don't even sort of look at the direction. I just start reading the dialogue, and sometimes something happens there. Other times it's a bit of work. You go, okay, nothing sticks. So I'll go read the direction, which you're supposed to read. So
Yeah.
I do completely what acting people, don't. Then I go read. Okay, so he's older. Okay, so I'll start. If I'm reading it, this in this area here, maybe 50s, and I go, oh, he's 60 to 70.
So I'll just add a bit of age to him. And if he's very old, I'll just sort of switch it and become.
And if it depends on if he's a powerful person, so I'll just kind of mold it like plasticine and just create this character and see if anything sticks, and try and make it as real as possible. Try and give him a heartbeat, a soul, and create this. It's every character you create has to be a living, breathing being. It has to exist, unless you're doing Cuphead and cartoony stuff. But it has to. Even then, they have to have a soul, right, Ian? They got to come from a place of truth.
Yeah.
When I started out, it was all about the brain. Oh God, what am I going to do? Now it's all about feel and heart. You have to feel it here. It's got to be real.
And they do give us some direction, usually. Like David said, you don't always read it right off the bat, and they sometimes give us references, like sound like Katharine Hepburn or whatever, and they'll give us like YouTube clips sometimes. And it's more, not exactly the voice sometimes, but just the feeling of the character. One of them I got recently was Ryan Reynolds, and he talked really fast in the show. It was an animated show, and he talked really, really fast. And so even though I didn't sound like Ryan Reynolds, I got the gist of a bit of a hyper character, a bit goofy. And then what David said too, then you have to go, well, how is this character, how would they laugh? How would they cry? What motivates them? Who do they like? Who do they dislike? So, because there's always kind of a villain and their pals. And you form it that way. And like David said, sometimes just getting out of your head is a better way to come up with the character, just to feel it.
And if nothing happens, you see, I kind of let the phrase "let it cook" walk away.
Yeah.
And if you have time, come back tomorrow, because something else, And old D. Bradley Baker's school of acting too is don't be afraid to do things to make your cheeks like this, or start with this, or use your face and try and come up with something unique and different. But again, it has to be grounded in reality.
And you'd be surprised how many times you audition and get a character, and then you get into the session and it starts to change.
Yeah.
Yes.
And sometimes you end up a long way from where you were actually cast, which is such a kick in the head. Because you think of how many times this happens to every actor, and you think, well, I'm eternally grateful that I'm that lucky to book the amount of characters that I do, but it's such it's a really crazy business. Like,
sure,
it's all feely.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know what? And you get there and let's throw all the Lego pieces in the air and we're starting over. But you still got the gig, which is ironic. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because they know you can do whatever they want you to do.
That's true.
That's another thing. You got to be versatile. And
That's true.
And yeah, when you're auditioning, I have a character in mind. I have a couple characters usually in mind, like a couple ideas, but you can't get stuck on it because you could go in there and the director could throw you, like Ian said, like a loop, and you're, oh, wow, I did not think of that at all. So you have to be
And
open.
then you get fired.
Don't get stuck on it. Don't get into this voice. I have to do this. No, it has to be like this because she's a nerd or he's a nerd or whatever. And then once you get the character again, you get the gig, then you can start doing this a little more. But still, you got to stay open. Like you said, sometimes it's just like, wow, I wasn't going to play that character like that at all. But you have to do what the director or producer wants.
And it's amazing in this industry too. As the years go by, you just doing voices, you begin to realize and find out who you are as a person. It's that's kind of philosophical. You go, wow, because we all have those sides in us because we're human beings. And as you get older, you can start to play around with it, all the nuance. Travel, read as much as you can. It sort of completes you as a human being, and you never stop learning. And that's I love about this process and continuing to do it. It's so cool.
Great question. Thank you.
Yes.
Do you have any likes or dislikes of voice acting?
Well,
Let's start with my dislikes.
okay. Oh, come on. Okay, I think the only dislike is that we did have to scream a lot in Dragon Ball Z. I'd taken aspirin before, and we had 8-hour sessions. So even though I was a singer and I was used to belting out, that kind of screaming at a high range, well, any range really, that kind of screaming is really tough on your vocals. So they've changed the rules. It's 4 hours maximum, and they often leave the screaming for the end. So you do all the scripts, and then you go back and do those yells at the end of the session. So they've gotten much nicer. Our union was strong and put that forth, because video games were the same thing. Same thing exactly. You were just in there, and you were like, pow, 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 like all the time.
Vocal stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was a singer-songwriter, so I was playing at night gigs, and then I'd have to get up in the morning and do some sweet little My Little Pony gig or sing in a sweet little voice, and sometimes you were just fried. That's the only dislike I can think of. And just, it is a business, and you have to be able to take a lot of rejection, a lot of criticism, and you don't always agree or get along with the director. That can be a difficult situation. They have their favorites. So there's all that kind of business side. As far as the rest of it, we do have a heck of a good time, so I can't really complain about anything else.
How do you complain about our job?
Not at all.
But here's a big like. I like the notion that the work that we do reaches millions and millions and millions of people, huge fans, and speaking for myself, I think you guys might agree, we can walk among you anywhere and never be recognized.
Yeah.
That's the best.
I mean,
I
except
prefer that.
in venues like this. People,
Yeah.
I recognize you because you're on a poster or whatever. But I don't know about you.
No, I have a friend of mine who always liked to be recognized at the grocery store. He got a kick out of it. He was like, I said, dude,
I'm the opposite.
no, I don't want that.
I like it when I'm here and in venues like this, but it is such a joy to just be able to move around in your life and never be bothered. It's like it's like we've got a little secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can record
we're really
auditions
famous.
in our pajamas.
Oh yeah, that's good too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Good
kind of
question.
nice.
That was a great question.
Thank you very much.
Once I finally heard it.
Question though, with how large and popular Dragon Ball is, it is essentially a gateway to anime. And in the 90s, you didn't really have much. I mean, yeah, there's Inuyasha and I guess, what's another one? Sailor Moon. But yeah, Dragon Ball is essentially the gateway to anime for America. And that's where it really all got started. So my question is, what's the most fascinating or interesting part about being a part of something that large or important, especially in animation?
Well, I'm just eternally grateful. And like we said before, it's because of you guys. You kept it going. We stopped the show, I don't know, I did it for 8 years, so I don't know when we stopped it in 2000 something. And it's still going. It's still going. Like people will say, well, what's your favorite scene when? And I was like, dude, I can't remember what I did yesterday. And
That's really true, actually.
it is true. And we did it like, 25 years ago? So it's incredible that it's still so popular. And like I said, it's because of you guys. I mean, you're amazing.
Same answer. The thing that the way it impacts me is when we're in places like this with people like you, because you are reminded of how large this thing was. I don't think any of us sit around, on a daily basis going, yeah, Dragon Ball, and think about it like philosophically. It's the interpersonal stuff and the sheer numbers of people that have been impacted. That is, it's just amazing.
You guys make it fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you really do. People cosplay, and you see it, and you really do make it fun, and it's a joy. Somebody mentioned Sailor Moon back there. Remember Tom Kenny was in that, and that's another gateway, because that was a real, crossover. Like, and what Tom Kenny's doing? What? It was
SpongeBob.
Yeah. I mean, that was a huge thing too. But yeah, you're right. This is one of those gateway shows that we were involved in up there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
What is your favorite aspect of voice acting, between like doing voices or the acting part of it?
Ooh, it's not a stock answer, but I prefer to characterize it this way. We call it voice acting, and I think it should be switched. It should be acting with your voice, because it's all about what, similar to what David was saying. It's from inside. The characters come from your life experience, from your motivations, and the voices are just like the last layer of it, because you can kind of tweak anything. You can stick it out the front of your nose, you can stick it in the back of your throat, you can make it wacky or not, and inside is where it comes from. So, and I think it's a common misconception that, I've got this friend who can do all these crazy voices. We all know that guy or girl. And it's not taking anything away from their ability to do hilarious voices, but the acting is first. So that's my answer. Switch them around.
That's a very good answer. And I know when I first started, I would get it stuck in my head, because my voices were quite often very far from my natural voice, like when I actually got to play a mom or they let me play a female. But they were so far from my natural voice that I was thinking about the voice too much. And then, like what these guys say, then the soul doesn't come through and you're at one level only. You're not, I always have to remember, no, he has soft sides or loud sides, he's shy, he's this, and all that those nuances have to come out in your voice. And so that's a great answer. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah,
I'm going to steal that one, because you have to think of it the opposite way. That's why it's almost like if you play a piano and sing, or you play the guitar and sing, one of them has to be so natural that you're not even thinking about it. So when I'm just doing kind of my stock 10-year-old, like I don't even have to think about it. So I can really think about like little nuances, like, well, he gets scared sometimes, or and I don't have to think about the voice, because it's kind of in my head. But yes, the acting must come out first, or you're one-dimensional. You're not an animated character, which doesn't mean animated character doesn't mean you're big all the time. It's quite the opposite. They have to have ups and downs. And yes, like you said, you can put, as a singer, that's where I started, you can put stuff in your nose and it can sound like this, or maybe somebody has a lisp, or like David said, you can, well, maybe they're just talking like this. I know it sounds crazy, but you move it around, your embouchure changes and where the sound's coming from. It's just like singing.
One thing I do all the time is you use your ears, or your most important tool, by being an actor who uses their voice. Listening, because everything you can come up with, there's actual real people out there that talk. I was sitting having a drink in Vegas a long time ago, just in one of those piano bars, and people walking by, and there was a guy talking, I'm going to go to the slot machine. I never forgot. There's these are real human beings.
Be observers.
We steal people's voices all the time.
At
like
the
not
convention
voice
this weekend, let's keep listening to people, because everyone has these cool voices. Everywhere, you're all unique.
Yep.
It's like a fingerprint. You know?
Over the years, have you ever inadvertently had a character's voice come out when you like stub your toe or get cut off in traffic?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Do you have like a monologue in your head?
Yeah.
Every day.
When I'm
David, you find something at the store and you go, yes.
No. No, I don't. I don't.
or when I'm cycling or something and I forget to dismount at the right time and you're like, oh,
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
or I go, ee, when I'm coming to a screech, and my friends are like, oh, I hear that voice.
I turn into Hugh Test from Johnny Test. Johnny, go! Happens all the time. Thank you. It's a good one.
Thank you.
I like your
I was
purple.
wondering, what was your favorite part about working on Dragon Ball Z?
Getting the beat out of me. That was a long, screamy session.
Oh.
But it was actually kind of, there was a lot of laughter going on with all those punches.
My answer is kind of not fair, but again, this is my favorite part of being involved with Dragon Ball Z. I mean, this is amazing.
It's very cool. And I was just for Gohan, it was a nice transition from him being a shy, sensitive boy to being the warrior that he became. It's always nice when there's, a lot of layers to a character. If it's just one-dimensional, it becomes a bit boring. So for me, it became, as I went on, the crazier the voice, the more fun it was, or the wackier the character, because it just lets us pull different things out of our satchel and use it. So I think the transition in that character especially was kind of a highlight for me. Oh, you thought
I do actually have a fragment of a piece of a kernel of a memory. I think it was Dragon Ball. So you guys help me out. Well, we did a lot of anime back then. And as I mentioned, I was involved in the I don't know, maybe I didn't mention this. My partner and I were involved in reversioning the Japanese script translations as well. So we were deeply in the process. So we had this scene where a girl, help me with the character if this rings a bell, was jumping off a cliff, and it was at night, and the camera tilts up, and she's falling, and she grabs onto a branch, and she's hanging on. And so we're in production, right? And we're looking at the translation, the raw translation of the Japanese to English, which is all, doesn't make any sense. So you have to fix that. And we're going, okay, what's going on here? Because the next thing that happened really perplexed us. She hangs on, and then suddenly there are stars coming from her undies, as you do with Japanese animation. And we're looking around the room going, what is that? Did she become magical somehow? So, back in those days, you get on the phone, you're talking to the guy back in Japan who did the original reversion. You go, okay, help us out here. What's going on? Because we need to fix this dialogue, or we're gonna, do something else. And he just laughs. He goes, oh, yes, seen 008 time code 429. Yes, that's not magic. That's a pee-pee. And we just, really? I thought this was, so I don't know how we fixed it or what we did or what, anyway.
Well, I pee stars.
Well.
Don't you? Doesn't everybody?
It's like a leprechaun in gold or something. Oh, there's kids. No. Anyway, there's a memory.
Let's end on that.
Yeah.
There you go. And look at the time, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Jillian. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, David. Thank you for being at the show. Give a big round of applause for your Dragon Ball 90s actors. Thank you very much, everybody.